Okay guys, today's topic we are going to discuss is with AWS IAM. IAM. IAM stands for Identity and Access Management. The service is used to manage the users of Amazon Web Services. Here we can create a standard users and we can uh, customize their policies, like we can create the passwords for them and policies like what exactly they had the access on what services. You can observe from the Amazon Web Services console you had a lot of services, right? So we can create a user and we can restrict this particular user to some services. Let me log into this Amazon console. Okay, under security and identity category under the web console, you'll find this identity and access management. So under this identity and access management, you can see here clearly he listed out saying that manage user access and encryption keys. So we can create users here and we can restrict policies to users saying that what he should have access to it, and we can create passwords to him, how to authenticate through their text formatted password or like access and secret keys. Okay, let us directly enter into this service. This is what an overview dashboard of IAM service. Under this you can see IAM resources. So this is the for users they cannot log into the link what I have done. See what I have do. I just type this portal aws.amazon.com slash. Then I logged into the sign in page. I went for here this users to log in into this Amazon console. They had an different URL. Here in my case the URL is, you can find the URL from the dashboard. Here it is. So click SQL like a test is my account name, or you can by default what he provides, Amazon guy provides you with an account number. By change that number to name. So this, by using this URL only the users can log in into this AWS console, because they are not the root users, they are not the administrative users, they are just a standard users. To authenticate the standard users into this Amazon console, they cannot directly log in into this AWS root console. They have to log in via this account related console. So that URL you can found from this dashboard of IAM service. So right away I have created 12 users. So I'll explain you what are groups, what are users, roles, policies and everything. So first we'll create users. So how to create users? Just click on the users. Just create a new, we'll create a new user. Just click on the create new users. Enter the name. If you want to create a maximum 5 users, you can create the maximum 5 users. Okay, I'll create a user with okay, this is username, just create. So I have successfully created a user, and for my user he has given a security credentials. Security credentials are nothing but, as I said, it will consist of an access key and a secret key. We use these credentials if I wanted to perform some actions on Amazon Web Services through the CLI mode. Then I'll use this security key credentials, the security credentials like access key and secret key. This is what my access key, it's like a username, and secret key is like a password. We use this for integrating some services to programming languages, these keys. Like if I want to create a bucket in S3 from my Java programming language, then first I have to authenticate into this AWS console, sorry, AWS data center. For that, for authentication purpose, which user the authentication should be happened. For that reasons, we have to provide their access key and secret key in the programming language of Java. Then by using this both keys, it will authenticate, and then we have to write a code for CLI code of Amazon AWS for launching this bucket in which region. So after writing the code in Java, then it creates a bucket on that particular region by compiling that code from your desktop or whatever it is. So that reasons we use this. First, after creating user, it will provide a security credentials, and the first thing you have to do is you have to download the credentials. This is the one-time credentials. He'll never give after creating users. If you lost these credentials, you never regain again these credentials, the same credentials. Again, you have to create a new credentials for him. So just download these credentials and save it in a safe and secure place, and don't share these credentials with anybody. Okay, next close. So let me directly enter into the user summary. So actually, this is what my account number. So here on the main console dashboard URL, I changed it to click test. So it's hard for me to remember this account number. That's the reason I changed it to click test, human readable word. So right now I has no password. So if you want to set a plain text password with the user, go for this security credentials, sign down. This is what the access key. Through the security credentials I had access key, and the second thing is I said user plain text username and password. For me username is basudka.kartik@gmail.com. I had no password till now I said. So manage password, assign an auto-generated password. If you check mark this, it will automatically create a new password and it will assign that password to this user. Now if you want to assign a custom password, then you go for these custom password setups and enter the custom password. So if you it's like I am administrator, I created a new password, I created a new user and I assigned some password to it. So what I'll do, I'll mail these credentials to the user, and I don't want to have the password. Then what I'll do, I'll sign up this required user to create a new password at the next login. Excuse me. If I check mark on this box, the user, after receiving the mail from me saying that this is what the URL you have to log in, and this is what the username and password. After entering the password for the first time, he'll ask to generate a new password again. So that password will be his account password. He'll have the idea of what the password is. So whatever the password, the customer password I created for right now, it won't work any longer after he creates a new password. If you want to make this happen in that scenario, then you check mark this box. Or if you want to have whatever the password I given here, if you want to have that user this particular password for his all the lifetime, then you can give this. You no, don't check mark on this box. So right now I just created password does not confirm the account. Okay, for creating a password we have account policy. So password policy. So for my password policy, what I set is, I set like a numerical number should be there in a password, and a special character should be there in the password, a caps lock should be there in the password, and the password should be minimum 8 letters. Like that I set a policy. I'll tell you where to set that policy. So according to that policy I'll create it. Okay, now I created a password. Yes, I never used it. So from here, from the root account, if you go to his user settings, you can see when he lastly used the password. And second authentication type is with the sign-in credentials only. Apart from the security credentials, the security credentials are this access key and secret key. We call these credentials as security credentials, and sign-in credentials are plain text password and username. On the sign-in credentials also, we can enable multi-factor authentication device. What is MFA, multi-factor authentication device? Ante it's like scenario, consider someone hacked or someone came to know your username and password. They'll easily log in into your console and they can do anything, right? So in order to escape such kind of things, even you can observe in the bank applications you had some MFS. So after entering into the bank to perform some transactions, he'll send a OTP for you through SMS, or he'll send a email with some number to your email addresses. Like that, if you want to enable such kind of scenarios, after entering the username and password also, if you want to provide some number, auto-generated number that should be triggered to your email or that should be triggered to your mobile, how it will triggers to your email, if for that it uses an SES service, to your mobile it uses an SNS service. So if you want that to happen, then you can enable this multi-factor authentication from here. So you are enabling multi-factor authentication. One authentication is through this username and the plain text password, and the second authentication is the auto-generated 6 digits or 4 digits number what you will get to your email or your mobile. So another is manage sign-in certificates. So it is like an certificates. See here, for the secure site, he has a certificate. This is what the certificate he had. If you open the certificate in detail, SSL certificates allow ఉంటాయంటే, it is like with completely encrypted data. You'll find a 512 characters of XYZ, YZ, like that unformatted file. So similarly, if you want to sign in through certificate, so you'll have that certificate, you'll have that file. In that case, you can sign in through these certificates. So this is the different types of sign in. One is through plain text and password. Another is above the plain text and password, you have to enable this multi-factor authentication device, or else above this plain text and password, you need to provide one certificate. Certificate is nothing but ఒక .txt ఫైల్ ఉంటుంది కదండి, ఆ ఫైల్ లాగానే ఒక 512 క్యారెక్టర్స్ ఉంటుంది, కాకపోతే ఎక్స్టెన్షన్ వేరే ఉంటుంది. .pemo, .ppkనో డిఫరెంట్ కైండ్ ఆఫ్ ఎక్స్టెన్షన్స్. నార్మల్గా SSL certificates కి or this kind of certificates ki the extension he'll give is .csr or .crt. So this is about the user and how we create the security credentials for the users. Next, coming to permissions and groups. So assume you wanted to create a 10 users for 10 developers. Similarly, you wanted to create 10 users for 10 infrastructure people. So you had two categories. So you wanted to create a 10 users for developers and you wanted to create a 10 users for infra team guys. Infra team is nothing but IT support team. So, and you wanted to restrict these developers to only some services and you wanted to restrict these infra team guys on some services. Like you wanted to restrict this infra team guys on EC2, S3, VPC. Only you wanted to give the permissions for them to work on these three things. And you wanted to give the permissions for these developers to work on code commit, code pipeline, and code deploy, or SNS, SES, or S3. In such case, so you cannot enter into every user and you cannot write a policy for him saying that this user should have a permissions on S3, this developer user should have a permissions on S3, work docs, sorry, code commit, code pipeline, code deploy, SNS, SES. అలా 10 users కి 10 సార్లు రాయలేం. So what will you do? You create a group and you'll add all these users to that group and you write policies on that group. So go to groups, create a new group, name the group, example developers. Next step. So what policy should be on these developers? So I wanted to give policy like full access on S3, AWS S3 full access. I'll check my this. So you'll have a full access on S3, or else you can just restrict to him to have only read access on S3. S3, type S3 and enter. Sorry, previous. S3. So on S3, do you want to give full access or read access? It's up to you. I want to give read access for these developers and for code commit. So on code commit service, code commit is nothing but a centralized repository where developers will store all their code. So code commit is a service with Amazon Web Services. It is a centralized repository. It's like a central server where all the developers will store their code. After writing the code in their own PCs, they'll commit their code into that central server. So that's the reason I wanted to give the full permissions to these users who are under this group. Check mark. Like that, you check marks whatever you want and what kind of permissions you want on that services. And next step. So this is what. So the group name is developers and you have given the policies of two policies right now. One is Amazon S3 read-only policy. On S3 bucket, you are giving the read-only policies, and AWS code commit service, you are giving the full policies. So create group. So now the group is created. So next thing is adding the users to the group. Go to users. So I recently I created a user. Let us assume that user as a developer. So I want to add this user to the groups. Just click on this user. Click on this groups category. Add user to group and specify the group name. Which group I want to add him to the developers. Okay. Right now under developers there are 0 users. Add to groups. So this user is added to the group developers. Like that we can create a users. We create groups and we restrict and we attach policies to that groups and we add these users to that groups. So what are all the permissions? Now this user has, one is he gained two permissions, two policies. One is S3 read access and code commit full access from the group. It's like he got that permissions, he got that policies as a inheritance from that group. Now, if you want to provide, even though the user in that group, you wanted to from that, let us assume you had 10 users on that group, and for that one particular user, you wanted to provide additional policy apart from the policies that he gained from the group. For that, in that scenarios, you can attach him an additional policy, attach policy like VPC read-only access. On the VPC service, he'll have the just read-only access. See, no, from the group policies, he gained these two policies on these services. From the his individual policy, he gained this VPC read-only access. So he had an extra policy, VPC read-only access, apart from these group policies. Like that, you can create an extra policies and you can attach the extra policies to the users. So basically, I can say he got these two policies as a inherited from this group policies, and he got this individual policy that we individually attach this policy to the user. Like that, you can attach 10 policies, maximum of 10 policies to this user. So what's going on, buddy? I can see some chats. Bhavin, I can't hear you. So Bhavin, you can't hear me? Just unmute your mic, Bhavin. Hello. Bhavin, are you there? Arun, what's the problem with Bhavin?
Yeah, he just texted me regarding he can't hear you.
He was unable to hear the class?
Yeah.
Tell him go to this audio settings. Under this uh, audio settings, he'll find on what playback devices that audio should appear through computer audio or microphone audio. So tell him to choose on which the audio has to play back.
Okay.
Maybe his playback audio is from maybe headsets. Tell him to check the settings. So he messaged me, got it. So can you hear me, Bhavin? If you hear me, please reply me. Okay, he messaged me saying that yes, he can hear me. Okay, Bhavin. So let me give an overview of what we discussed till now. So we are discussing about the IAM service, identity and access management service. So under this service, we use this service for creating the users. What kind of users? Standard users, not the root user. Till now on the first day class, I have told you how to create a root user. So you created the root user and you got that AWS console by providing this credit card details while creating the root user, by providing your phone number, by providing your email ID. Like that, you created a root user with Amazon Web Services. Now it's time to create the sub users, the standard users or the child users of this root user. So that can be achieved by a service with Amazon Web Services, and we call the service as Identity and Access Management Service. See the name itself, identity stands for users. We created a user. And access management. So for that identity, what access should we allow or we should provide on what services? Here, like I can create a user and I can restrict a user to some services of AWS console. Under the console, you can find nearly 30 services, right? Here nearly you can find 30 services. So from this identity and access management, you can create one user and you can restrict that user only to one service, and also on that one service you can restrict with full access or read access or partial access. Such kind of thing we can restrict with that user. So entering into this service, so first we deal with users. Go to users and click on the create new user, specify the username and just click on the create. After clicking on the create button, you'll get a user security credentials. Security credentials are nothing but a access key and a secret key. So what I did, I created a user with name basudkarkarthik@gmail.com, where it is here. For that he provided me a access key and secret key. This is my access key, secret access key. I mean the username for that user. It's like another username. Apart from this, basudkar.karthik is a plain texted username. This is some encrypted username. And I have got even the password. I downloaded it. So this is a one-time security credentials. While creating a user only, you can get this. If you lost this, you cannot regain this credentials. So be secure these credentials. So you can, even if you want to inactive these credentials, you can, from here you can do make inactive, yes, deactivate. So even though I created a security credentials for this user, I can keep the security credentials for a time being for inactive. So he cannot log into AWS console by using this access key and secret key through CLI mode. CLI stands for command line interface. As I told you earlier, we can do the actions with Amazon Web Services through GUI and CLI. GUI stands for graphical user intermode. Graphical user intermode ఏంటి అంటే మన కళ్ళకి కనిపించేది. రైట్ నో ఐ కెన్ సీ ఆల్ ద బ్రౌజర్లో ఆ సర్వీసెస్ చూస్తున్నాను, నేను దాని మీద డబుల్ క్లిక్ చేస్తున్నాను. గ్రాఫికల్లీ ఐ ఆమ్ సీయింగ్ ఇట్. మై యూజర్, ఐ ఆమ్ ద యూజర్. My interface with computer with Amazon Web Services is graphically. That's the reason he called it as GUI, graphical user interface. And I can similarly perform this all the actions through CLI, command line interface. Open the command prompt. ఎందుకంటే లైనక్స్ సర్వర్లో మీకు గ్రాఫిక్స్ ఉండవండి, జస్ట్ ఇలా ఒక బ్లాంక్ వచ్చేస్తుంది అంతే. అక్కడ ఒక డాష్ కొట్టుకుంటూ ఉంటుంది. From here you have to write every command to do operations. If you wanted to launch the EC2 console through CLI, you can do it. For that purposes, you need this access key and secret key, not for GUIs. For GUIs, you need username and password. So after creating a user, it's time to, I got this security credentials. Now it's time to create a password for him. So from here, sign-in credentials, you can create a password from him. And if you want to enable multi-factor authentication on that on this account for this user, you can enable this multi-factor authentication. So how do you enable this multi-factor authentication? Enable అని చెప్తున్నాడు. Okay, how do we do this? For this you have to install an app in your mobile, or you have to a virtual MFA device. Virtual MFA device is nothing but for your mobile. If you install this MFA device, ఏం చేస్తుంది, మీరు ప్రతిసారి లాగిన్ అయినప్పుడల్లా యూజర్ నేమ్ అండ్ పాస్వర్డ్ ఆఫ్టర్ ఎంటరింగ్ ఇంటూ యువర్ అకౌంట్, ఆ మొబైల్లో ఉన్న యాప్కి ఒక నోటిఫికేషన్ వస్తుంది. ఆ ఎస్ఎంఎస్ 6 డిజిట్స్ నెంబరు, 8 డిజిట్స్ నెంబరు. ఆ నెంబర్ ఇక్కడ ఈ అకౌంట్లో మళ్ళీ ప్రెస్ చేస్తే దెన్ యూ లాగిన్ టు యువర్ కన్సోల్. ఆర్ there are some hardware devices for this authentication. మనకి పాతకాలంలో you used to have this one fax machine, sorry, the text machine, ఒక normal what we call for sending the SMSs. There is a separate machine in mostly Hollywood movies. You'll observe that text machine something ఏమంటారు కదండి, అలా ఒక మిషన్స్ ఉంటాయి ఈ MFA డివైస్ అథెంటికేషన్స్ కోసం. AWS హార్డ్వేర్ MFA డివైస్ ఇమేజెస్, ఇలా ఒక టెక్స్ట్ మిషన్ ఉంటుంది చూడండి. సో దీనికి మీరు అక్కడ లాగిన్ అయిన యూజర్ నేమ్ అండ్ పాస్వర్డ్ ఇచ్చిన వెంటనే ఈ మెషిన్ కి ఒక నెంబర్ వస్తుంది. ఆ నెంబర్ వర్క్స్ ఓన్లీ ఫర్ 30 seconds or 1 minute. You can keep all that. See, he has machines ప్రొడక్షన్ కి, ఇన్ఫ్రాస్ట్రక్చర్ కి, డెవలపర్ కి అలా మిషన్స్ ఇస్తారన్నమాట ఎంప్లాయీస్ కి. ఇఫ్ ఇట్ ఈస్ మోర్ సెక్యూర్ యూ వాంటెడ్ టు గో విత్, like you created a Amazon Web Service account and you're dealing all the production servers on that account. You had all the production servers on that account. In that scenarios, you can go with this kind of devices. We call these devices as MFA devices, multi-factor authentication devices. Or you can install your app in your mobile like this. AWS వర్చువల్ MFA అని ఒక యాప్ ఉంటుంది. అది ఇన్స్టాల్ చేశాక ఒక కీ వస్తుంది. ఆ కీ తీసుకెళ్ళి అక్కడ ఎంటర్ చేస్తే దెన్ యూ కెన్ అథెంటికేట్. ఎక్స్క్యూజ్ మీ. So after creating this username, you have to create a groups. Consider a scenario where you wanted to create a 10 users and you wanted to give the same policies, same permissions for the 10 users. So individually you cannot create it. It takes a lot of time. So add these 10 users to that particular group, create a group and add these 10 users to that group and attach policies or what services he should have access అనేది to that group and add all the child users to that group. By doing that you can gain that. This is about this groups. So right now this user is attached to a group developer. So he got two permissions from the developers group, that is this, and has assigned an individual policy to him, that is this. So దిస్ ఈజ్ యాక్సెస్ అడ్వైజర్. యాక్సెస్ అడ్వైజర్ అంటే తను ఎప్పుడు లాస్ట్ లాగిన్ అయ్యాడు, ఏ సర్వీసెస్ యూజర్ చేశాడు. యూ కెన్ ట్రేస్ దిస్ ఇన్ఫర్మేషన్ ఫ్రమ్ దిస్ యాక్సెస్ అడ్వైజర్ on that particular user. So he never logged in to this EC2 console, no access in this tracking period. So let me log into that user. How do you log into this account by this user? You have to have this URL, control C, control V. Okay, I'll try to log in from a different browser. Okay, I pasted that URL, enter. See, నా యూజర్ డిఫరెంట్గా అయిపోయింది. లాగిన్ యూజర్, ఐ గాట్ ఏ అకౌంట్, యూజర్ నేమ్ పాస్వర్డ్. ఇంతకుముందు అకౌంట్ వచ్చేది కాదు, జస్ట్ యూజర్ నేమ్ అండ్ పాస్వర్డ్. So I logged into this using AWS console using this basudkar.karthik.gmail which I have created. This is a standard account. He is only restricted to this. See, basudkar.karthik@gmail.com is restricted only to this click test account. At the rate click test stands for he is restricted only to click test account. And I have given this guy only some permissions. What permissions? Read permissions on S3. Let us see whether he had what permissions with S3. Clicking on this S3. Oh, he can see all the buckets in the S3. Let us try to create a bucket name, Karthik test region, any region. I'll go with Singapore. Create. Sorry, you do not have permissions to view this bucket or to create a bucket. So a pop-up message appeared because I haven't given the policies to him to create a bucket. I given the policies to him. I restricted this user only to read access. Okay, that's the reason he cannot able to create the bucket. And let us see. And I created a. Let us try to launch an instance from this user EC2. See, even it is not telling how many instances are running and everything information. You are not authorized to describe running instances. You are not authorized to describe key pairs. You don't have the permissions. Launch instance. An error occurred describing your selected AMI. You are not authorized to perform this operation. Like that, we can create users and we can attach policies to the users and we can restrict the users to only some services of AWS console. So any doubts on this, guys?
No, no, Karthik. That's clear.
That's from Srinivas. And what about others? Bhavin, no. Arun, any doubts on this topic? User creation,
No,
policies, attaching the policies and creating the groups and adding the users to the groups.
no, no.
You're clear. What about you, Ravi?
It's clear, Karthik.
Okay, it's clear from your side too. Okay. Uh, so we'll sign out from this user. See, even you don't have the permission to see the billing and cost management too. Because if you want to view the cost, I have to enable the permissions to read this to him. You are not authorized to perform this operation. I am access denied. Sign out. And what happens basically in companies, root user will be maintained by the senior guy who is very good expertise in AWS cloud, and he'll create all the sub users, standard users, and he'll provide the credentials to this employees for developers, for infra team guys. And ikkadante manaki small companies so you'll find 10 people working on AWS. But in big companies, when you are going with MNC companies, under the root user, you'll find some hundreds of people working on this root user. So they'll create hundreds or 2, 3, 400 users, standard users, and then divide the standard users according to the groups and their policies. So under account settings, as I said, I created a password policy while creating the password to users, right? Here I can see. So what is the minimum password length should be while creating a password for I am user? 8 characters I specified. Require at least one uppercase and one lowercase, one number on that password, one alphabetical character. Allow users to change their own passwords. See, if you uncheck mark this, they cannot change their passwords after giving the login to them. If they wanted to change the password at certain time, they can do it. If you uncheck here, they cannot do it. For changing the password, again they have to approach this guy, root user guy. So for regular password, he is keeping a expiry date 60 days, like that. If you enable this check mark, password expiration requires administration reset. So if the password is expired from the user. If you want to change the password by providing the previous password to a new password, right away he can do it. If I enable this, for changing the new password, he should reach the administrator guy who has this root account for doing that. Because from this his user, the standard user, he cannot do it. So if you wanted to download all the security credentials of all the users and see their statuses, you can do it from here. So next, coming to roles. Policies place on services and the restrictions. Roles are something that are assigned to these groups and users. For every role you'll attach, let us assume you wanted to create two roles. Sorry guys. Like administrator users, and you have to create another role, standard users. Let us assume three roles: developer users, standard users, administrator users. And you wanted to, అంటే ఇప్పుడు ఒక టీంలో టీఎల్ ఉంటాడండి, ఆ టీఎల్కి కంప్లీట్ యాక్సెస్ ఇవ్వాలనుకుంటున్నారు అన్ని సర్వీసెస్ మీద. And you wanted to make all the different team TLs to be an administrators అంటే root users. So create a role with name administrator and attach that users to that role and give him full policy permissions on that role. Let us do this. Create role admin. So he's saying you create, enter a role name. You cannot edit the role name after the role is created. Okay. So what kind of role? Allow EC2 instances to call AWS services on your behalf. So whoever the users under this role, they can perform యాక్షన్స్ లైక్ నేను ఒక యూజర్ వచ్చేసి ఒక నార్మల్ స్టాండర్డ్ యూజర్ వచ్చేసి ఒక EC2 సర్వీస్తో తనకు ఒక ఇన్స్టెన్స్ లాంచ్ చేశాడండి ఎట్ సింగపూర్ రీజియన్, అండ్ హీ వాంటెడ్ టు లాంచ్ అన్ అనదర్ ఇన్స్టెన్స్ ఫ్రమ్ దట్ EC2 CLI. ఆల్రెడీ లాంచ్ చేసిన ఇన్స్టెన్స్లో హీ ఇన్స్టాల్డ్ ద CLI, అమెజాన్ CLI అండ్ అమెజాన్ SDK టూల్ కిట్స్, సాఫ్ట్వేర్ డెవలప్మెంట్ కిట్ అండ్ CLI సాఫ్ట్వేర్ రెండు ఇన్స్టాల్ చేసి ఆ మెషిన్లో. ఫ్రమ్ దాట్ హీ వాంటెడ్ టు లాంచ్ అనదర్ ఇన్స్టెన్స్. ఆ మెషిన్లో నుంచి CLI జావా ప్రోగ్రామ్ నుంచి ఇంకో మిషన్ని లాంచ్ చేయాలనుకుంటున్నాడు, ఇంకో EC2 ఇన్స్టెన్సెస్. సో ఫర్ దాట్ he should have a special permissions and that should be enabled from here. EC2 full access. Create role. So I create an admin role. For this role, he had a full EC2 access. Not only from this console he can launch the instances, even from the AWS EC2 instances. ఆ ఇన్స్టెన్సెస్లో SDK సాఫ్ట్వేర్ అండ్ CLI AWS CLI సాఫ్ట్వేర్ ఇన్స్టాల్ చేసి ఒక జావా ప్రోగ్రామ్లో ఆ సెక్యూరిటీ క్రెడెన్షియల్స్ పెట్టి యూజర్ సెక్యూరిటీ క్రెడెన్షియల్స్ అండ్ లాంచింగ్ AWS ఇన్స్టెన్సెస్ ఆ కోడ్ దాంట్లో రాసి he can do that action also. You might have, మీకు డౌట్ రాలేదా CLI నుంచి లాంచ్ చేయాలి అంటున్నాడు, where can I find that CLI? He is teaching all the class through this GUI only. You can find that CLI from AWS EC2. You're dealing with EC2, right? Documentation slow. We are dealing with user guide, right? Linux developers guide, the user guide developers. I hope like under this you're dealing with Linux instances. Go for PDF. PDF. From this user guide, from this documentation, you'll find a very detailed, in detail code Java నుంచి లాంచ్ చేయాలంటే ఎలా లాంచ్ చేయాలి. సో ఫర్ మీ వాట్ కైండ్ ఆఫ్ లాంగ్వేజెస్, ఏ లాంగ్వేజ్ నుంచి ఈ యాక్షన్ పర్ఫామ్ చేయొచ్చు? AWS EC2 CLI లాంగ్వేజెస్. CLI. These are all the tools that help to do actions with Amazon Web Services consoles అండి. Like launching the instances, creating the users, creating the buckets, creating the SMS and sending the mails. So for that, to perform any action from your Android, ఇప్పుడు మీరు ఒక ఆండ్రాయిడ్ మొబైల్ యాప్ ఇన్స్టాల్ చేస్తున్నారు అనుకోండి, ఒక మొబైల్ యాప్ డిజైన్ చేస్తున్నారు. ఫర్ దట్ ఫస్ట్ యూ హ్యావ్ టు ఇన్స్టాల్ ఆ సర్వర్లో అమెజాన్ SDK సాఫ్ట్వేర్ డెవలప్మెంట్ కిట్ అనేది ఇన్స్టాల్ చేయాలి. ఎలా ఇన్స్టాల్ చేయాలి ఏంటి అనేది యూ కెన్ ఫైండ్ ద ఇన్స్ట్రక్షన్స్ ఫ్రమ్ హియర్. If you are developing some app that is related to browser nothing but Apache, web browsers కానివ్వండి, application browsers కానివ్వండి, then on that server you have to install this Amazon SDK. How to install, you can find the documentation from here. If you're designing or if you are developing an app that is related to iOS, Apple, so you wanted to install this SDK software in that Apple server, how do you do that? From here you can find it. And if you're developing a app, application or product that is something related to Java, from the Java programming languages you wanted to perform actions like launching the server or launching the buckets, creating the buckets or sending SMSs or sending emails, first you have to install this SDK in that Java server. How to do this? From here you can find it. If you're dealing with .NET, and these are all the different kind of applications or programming languages or platforms. Android, iOS, browser, these are platforms. Java, .NET or Java, .NET or applications, Node.js, PHP, Python, Ruby, those are the programming languages. See, simply using AWS service in your application with an API traiter, API means CLI mode nunchi application programming interface nunchi, if you wanted to perform the actions to your programming languages or platform. So how to do that? First you have to install this SDK software in that servers. So how to install that? That you can find it from here. We'll go with Java. I am not telling how to install, what to install. I am guiding you where you can find this kind of scenarios, installations. ఆ హెల్ప్ ఎక్కడ దొరుకుతుంది, ఆ టూల్స్ ఏంటి CLI mode లో. Okay, please remember where you find solutions. ఎలా సెర్చ్ చేయాలి? See how I worked up with Google AWS CLI programming language support. List all the programming అలా R&D అంటే like that kind of research you have to perform and you have to find. There are a lot of documentations and knowledge base articles, FAQs, frequently asked questions and their answers are available with Amazon's.com web portal. What you have to do, just you have to search it. సో ఇక్కడ ఇన్స్టాల్ కొట్టిన వెంటనే ఒక సాఫ్ట్వేర్ డౌన్లోడ్ అయింది నాకు. AWS జావా SDK సాఫ్ట్వేర్ డౌన్లోడ్ అవుతుంది నా సిస్టంలో. దాని తర్వాత ఎలా ఇన్స్టాల్ చేయాలి, డాక్యుమెంటేషన్, ఆ ప్యాక్ని. టూ డాక్యుమెంటేషన్స్ ఉన్నాయి దీంట్లో. ఒకటి డెవలపర్స్ గైడ్, ఒకటి API రెఫరెన్స్ గైడ్. డెవలపర్స్ గైడ్ ఏంటి అంటే వాట్ ఆర్ ఆల్ ద SDK, how to install this SDK and how to use this SDK for doing the actions with Amazon Web Services. ఈ గైడ్ లో ఉంటుంది. నెక్స్ట్, if you wanted to do some actions on Amazon Web Services like sending SMSs, SNS, that you can find, you can do with API calls. We call that queries. ఆ రిక్వెస్ట్ ఏమంటారంటే అప్లికేషన్ ప్రోగ్రామింగ్ ఇంటర్ఫేసెస్. అంటే మీ ప్రోగ్రామ్లో ఎప్పుడన్నా ఒక అతను లాగిన్ అయిన వెంటనే మీరు ఒక ప్రోడక్ట్ డిజైన్ చేశారనుకోండి, ఒక వెబ్సైట్. దాంట్లో ఏంటి అంటే వెబ్సైట్లో యూజర్ నేమ్ పాస్వర్డ్ పెట్టి ఒక అతను లాగిన్ అవుతున్నప్పుడు తన మొబైల్కి మెసేజ్ రావాలి, ఒక కోడ్, 6 digits కోడ్. ఆ కోడ్ వచ్చేసి మళ్ళీ అక్కడ కొడితేనే ఆ లాగిన్ పేజ్లో దెన్ హీల్ రీడైరెక్ట్ టు హిస్ హోమ్ పేజ్. దెన్ ఆ కోడ్ ఎలా వస్తుంది, తను లాగిన్ అయిన వెంటనే తన బ్రౌజర్ వచ్చేసి తన సర్వర్ కాంటాక్ట్ అయ్యే సర్వర్ వచ్చేసి ఈ SMS నోటిఫికేషన్కి API కాల్తో ట్రిగ్గర్ చేయాలి. తను లాగిన్ అవుతున్నాడు, ఒక యూజర్ నేమ్ పాస్వర్డ్, తనకు కోడ్ పంపి తన మొబైల్కి తన కాదా అని తెలుసుకోవడానికి. దెన్ ఇట్ విల్ ట్రిగ్గర్. ఆ ట్రిగ్గర్ని ఏమంటారంటే వీ కాల్ ద ట్రిగ్గరింగ్ యాజ్ API కాల్. సో దిస్ అప్లికేషన్, దిస్ వెబ్ సర్వర్ విల్ ట్రిగ్గర్ a API call to this SNS notification service of AWS or SMS SES, simple email service notification services of AWS. Then what happens, this SEL will trigger a mail to your inbox, or this SMS will trigger a message to your mobile. Like that, this backend functionality will happen. So where are we? We are talking about this rules and policies, right? This is account. That's it. This is different concept. This is with different servers. This is not required for you. So that's it about AWS IAM. So any doubts, guys? You had any doubts with this IAM service? No doubts? Should I consider from everyone need no doubts this?
Yeah.
Guys, what I'll do, I just wanted to check whether what is your understandability level and have you understood or not. On every day I was listening the same answer, no doubts, no doubts, no doubts. Can actual guy, if you're doing the back end work on these concepts, you should get a lot of doubts.
కొంచెం ప్రాక్టీస్ చేస్తే ఎక్కువ వస్తాయి కార్తిక్ కొంచెం
ఆ
ఎక్కువ
ఆ
ప్రాక్టీస్
ప్రాక్టీస్
ఉంటాయి
చేస్తున్నారా లేదా అని నేను తెలుసుకోవాలనుకుంటున్నాను. సో టుమారో క్లాస్ is no topic, only question and answers. I'll ask the questions and you have to answer.
ఓకే షూర్
Okay,
యా
so be ready for that. Everybody please go through your whatever all. Srinivas ఒకసారి మీ మైక్ అన్మ్యూట్ చేస్తారా? I was listening my own voice. Okay, that's clear. So tomorrow please ఇప్పటివరకు ఏం చెప్పాను ఏంటి ఒకసారి డాక్యుమెంటేషన్స్ చూడండి, రీకాల్ చేసుకోండి, AWS కన్సోల్ ఓపెన్ చేసి అన్ని సర్వీసెస్ ఒకసారి చూడండి. ఇఫ్ పాసిబుల్ యూ డూ సమ్ యాక్షన్స్ ఆల్సో. మేబీ హిల్ చార్జ్ సమ్ అమౌంట్ ఫర్ దట్. ఆ అమౌంట్ ఎంతో చూసుకోండి, యాక్షన్స్ చేయండి. అంటే ఎంత ఒక ప్రాక్టీస్ సినారియో లాగా. ట్రై టు లాంచ్ ఏ VPC, ఒక VPC క్రియేట్ చేయండి అండ్ ట్రై టు క్రియేట్ సబ్నెట్స్ అండర్ దట్. Tomorrow I'll ask questions like what is IG, what is VPN, how do you create VPN, show me. మీ స్క్రీన్ మీరు షేర్ చేసి నాకు చూపించాల్సి వస్తుంది రేపు. సో వీల్ టాక్ సచ్ కైండ్ ఆఫ్ క్లాస్ టుమారో. ఓకే, దట్స్ ఇట్ గైస్. విల్ ఎండ్ దిస్ క్లాస్ ఫర్ టుడే. Anything to say from your side? Okay guys, I'm ending up this class. Bye bye and have a nice day.
బై బై